I'm one of the three co-leaders of Us Two New York, a national Us Two chapter that's located at New York Presbyterian, Weill Cornell Medicine in Manhattan, New York.
I got you. So it's the chapter and support groups are part of what you do.
The chapter is a support group, a freestanding support group, and our mother organization is Us Two.
Great.
Based in Chicago.
Um, you have been diagnosed and treated for prostate cancer. Can you just tell me when you were given the diagnosis, and at that time, if you can recall, what your reaction was?
I could very easily recall when I was diagnosed. And there's a story before I was diagnosed. My physician and I talked about getting another PSA. I used to get them annually. I was about 53, and we talked about the PSA. And when I got my lab slip back, the PSA wasn't checked off. So being that we talked about it, I wrote it in. And shortly thereafter, I got a phone call from my doctor, and he said, I want to do a follow-up. And that was the point that began my prostate cancer journey. And I went to a urologist, and the urologist said I needed a biopsy, and he was very confident that it would prove to be a nothing. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll call you on the telephone if we found anything abnormal, but I don't think it, he said he didn't think it was going to be. And lo and behold, I got a phone call from the doctor, and I knew as soon as the doctor was speaking that the pathology results of my biopsy had proven to be prostate cancer. And so it was. And not only was it prostate cancer, but it was a reasonably aggressive one, like my personality. And I had all kinds of feelings about it. I had previously been diagnosed with a malignant melanoma and quite a few basal cell carcinomas. But this one hit me kind of hard because I didn't know much about prostate cancer, but I had a feeling that it could be potentially life-threatening and life-altering.
The support groups that you run, either what have you learned or what has surprised you? What's kind of significant that maybe the average person might not be aware of?
I was being treated at New York University Medical Center in New York, and a couple of women friends of mine suggested that I go to a prostate cancer support group, and that seemed alien to me. Even though I was a licensed social worker, I didn't think that I was a kind of a groupie kind of guy. But I listened to these two women friends, and I went to a prostate cancer support group that was based at a Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City because my NYU Medical Center didn't have one. And it was like manna from heaven. And the reason it was like manna from heaven was, number one, I didn't realize that so many other guys had prostate cancer. And the room was filled with people, with men with prostate cancer. And the speaker spoke about the likelihood of being helped dramatically with surgical or radiological intervention. And that gave me like hope, and I felt really confident. And then I went up to the speaker right after the meeting and I said, thanks, you were really great. And then he said, well, who's your doctor? And I told him who my doctor was. And he said, oh, I know that surgeon. He's wonderful. So it really began my journey of support groups in the most wonderfully positive way. And by the way, tangentially, the first doctor, urologist who I saw, told me that if he would do the surgery, I would be guaranteed to be impotent, and I would be guaranteed to have urinary dysfunction. Well, I immediately went to see somebody else, And I saw the chairman of the Department of Urology at NYU Medical Center, Dr. Herb Lepore, and he treated me and gave me a lot of hope and gave me a lot of time to work through some of my fears, anxieties, and concerns. My best advice would be for men to become informed about what their clinical presentation is about, to get the actual copies of the clinical reports from their physician and study them and go over them, and then to get maybe second and third opinions. And if they thought of surgery, if the men thought of surgery initially, well, maybe the man should look also into other modalities of therapy, radiation, or some of the new ones, HIFU, or active surveillance. In my time, in 1996, they didn't have active surveillance. So this is very significant that the man today who's diagnosed with prostate cancer is blessed. Blessed, you say? How is he blessed? Well, the blessing is that science has come such a long way from the time that I was diagnosed in 1996 to now, that there are so many more ways of understanding what the diagnosis actually means. The MRIs, the kinds of tests that are available, genomics, other kinds of exciting imagery, were not available maybe last year, the year before, 5 years ago. So the man who's diagnosed today, in the midst of all the horror, the scare, the fright, the anxiety, the frustration, the depression, the concern, really has a better shot at not only surviving, but thriving. And I think that it's important for men to meet in a support group setting where there are other cancer fighters, fellow cancer fighters, and they could really see and understand and dialogue about all the new things that are happening and get ideas for what to do, what's their next step. For example, in our prostate cancer support group, we bring in expert guest speakers every single month, and then we have questions and answers, and we try to make it that scientifically based and clinically oriented, so it's pragmatic. It's about things that are happening right now in academic medical centers. And then they could pick and choose and make informed decisions. And we also hope that men bring in their significant others in the support group setting, because we feel that it's not just an individual disease, that if it's a couple, this is a family disease. The husband, the wife, children, and the more they get involved and informed, the better they could feel and the better they could support the man with prostate cancer.